Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome. It's another wonderful weekend. 5 minutes to the hour of 5 p.m. I don't know how many chairpersons are here at the moment, but it will be a good time to go back to our respective WhatsApp groups, Telegram group, and tell everyone to join. It's always good to kickstart these classes on time, at the exact time it is scheduled for, okay? My name is Adishola Aladishawe. I will be your moderator for this evening. I know that prior to now, we know our ground rules. Once you come into class, make sure you place your names as you would like to see them on your certificates and the studio political parties that you represent. Okay, I will be back at the hour of 5 p.m. again to reintroduce myself and set the ground rules. Okay, so thank you for another opportunity to be here and to listen to our facilitator speak to us today on governance and corruption. So I'll be back in a short while to guide us through this class in a short while. Thank you, and please stay tuned. Okay, welcome everyone. Once again, it's the hour of 5 p.m. And on behalf of the college, I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time out once again. We know that it's the weekend and it's supposed to be restful, but it's also a time to increase knowledge. So we thank the college for giving us this privilege and opportunity. Setting the ground rules once again, please when you come into class, place your names as you would like to see them appear on your certificates at the end of this cohort, and also state your political party. We are how many? Just 14. Party chairpersons, party members, please could you, students of the cohort XIII, please could you go back, reach out to your members and let them know that the class is about to commence. This evening, we will be taking on a topic. I think it's the 13th of the lecture series. Today we'll be looking at governance and corruption, and we have a facilitator. I see him. He's right on here. And it's beautiful because one of the hallmarks of leadership and individuals who are, what's the word? Who are intentional about governance should actually come to class early. So we thank a facilitator who has paved the way for that. And we hope that even the members or the students take a cue from this. I will be reading the bio of our facilitator shortly. Please note that this class is to take about an hour, 30 minutes. If you have questions or comments as the facilitator delivers all that he has on his slides, please, you can put them down, put them in the chat box, or you can raise your hand. After he's done, I will then call on you to unmute yourself and ask your questions, okay? So this session, an hour, 30 minutes, an hour, 45 minutes max, and if it extends, we should be done by 7 p.m. Okay. All right, so I will be going through his bio now. Our facilitator this evening is Mr. Umar Yakubu. He specializes in the area of data science, criminal justice system, financial crimes, and geoeconomics. At the national level, he has been a member of the National Risk Assessment Secretariat on money laundering and terrorism financing. And he's also one of the 8 members that developed the National Anti-Corruption Strategy to be implemented by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation from 2017 to 2021. So you can see he's the man that walks, or that walks the talk. He has also been involved in policy making related to the legal and institutional framework of anti-money laundering and combating the financing of terrorism in Nigeria by serving on the Presidential Committee on Financial Action Task Force, PCFATF. He also worked on the technical committee that addressed FATF's strategic deficiencies, which got Nigeria delisted as a country of high risk by FATF in 2013. His core areas of expertise include policy formulation around corporate governance, criminal justice, anti-money laundering, combating the financing of terrorism, anti-corruption, counter-fraud, and national security. Pardon me, please. He has also obtained degrees and certificates from Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Nasarawa State University, University of Chester, University of Leicester, and the University of Portsmouth in the UK, the University of Leiden in the Netherlands, and SDG Academy and Harvard Business School in the US. He's currently on a PhD program on defense and security at the National Defense Academy. He is a member of the Nigerian Economic Society, NES, the Nigerian Institute of Management, NIM, Association of Certified Anti-Money Laundering Specialists, ACAMS, Association of Certified Fraud Examiners, ACFE, and Center for Counter Fraud Studies, CCFS, in the UK. He is the Chief Executive Officer of Counter Fraud Center, LLC, and the Executive Director of a civil society organization and the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Integrity Watch. Ladies and gentlemen, students and members of the college, please, with lovely emojis, let's welcome our facilitator for this evening, Mr. Umar Yakubu. He has a rich bio, which I've just read, and he will do justice to the topic governance and corruption this evening. Over to you, sir. I hand over the virtual lecture to you. Welcome.
All right, thank you. Good afternoon. How is everybody? How's your weekend?
We can hear you. Welcome, sir.
Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, very well.
Yeah, I think there's an event at the background, so you might be hearing some noise. There's a church having a loud program today. So I don't know whether to interrupt with the presentation today. I hope it doesn't.
Oh, it's quite quiet.
Okay,
So we
fine.
really can't hear anything. Yes.
Oh, that's good. Okay, can you allow me to share my screen so that I'll play my slides? I don't know.
Okay. Charlie, please make him co-host so that he's able to share.
Yes, sir, you can share your screen.
Okay. I've not done this. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir, we can.
Okay. Okay, one more time, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for coming on to attend this class on a Saturday evening. I'm sure it's not easy for anyone for your weekend to be disrupted for academic exercises. My name is Omar Yakubu. That profile she read is not mine. I can't claim it, it's too long. I'm with the Center for Fiscal Transparency and Integrity Watch. And today we're going to have a class on governance and corruption. This will be a little bit more interactive than the last one, so I'm going to ask some questions as we proceed. So it's going to be a short class, not up to 90 minutes, that I can assure you. First, we're going to have an introduction of what we're talking about. Then we'll go to talk about what governance is. Let me stop my video so that good. We'll talk about what governance is. Then we'll look at the dimensions of good governance. Then what is corruption? Then we'll look at the impact of corruption on governance. Then we'll look at what has been done so far to tame corruption in governance in Nigeria, make some recommendations, then we conclude. Good. Before I move to the next slide, I just want to make this a little bit interactive. I'm looking at the charts. Could anybody, I can see 29 people in the class. I'm looking for the first 10 people that will write and tell me what they think good governance is all about. Just in a line, I can give 1 minute for that, 30 seconds actually. The ANMPP, the ABGA, any party, what do you expect? What is good governance according to you? In your own words, what do you think good governance is? Okay, I can see Mr. Jimim say a people-oriented leadership and accountability. Someone, Mr. Godwin is talking about leadership, which is accountable and places citizens as the primary is a fair and just representation on the will and the needs of citizens. Good. Good governance is managing the people's resources efficiently and making the lives of the people better. Esther is saying good governance is people-centric. Okay, it's a government that meets the stages of the definition of democracy, not. Good governance means fair, accountable, transparent, responsive management for inclusive leadership, integrity, and efficient representation. Good governance, effective utilization of resources in the country or institution. The process of effectively managing, Mr. Agogo, of effectively managing public resources, public affairs and resources to promote the well-being of citizens. Excellent. So I can see Dr. Imoke, effective representation of the presidential of the people, provision of basic amenities, security, and appropriate management. Excellent. So I'm happy with these responses. At least we know what we expect. I don't know what the Electoral College has done to you guys that I can see our political parties. So it means that anytime any of you is in position, this is what you expect to deliver as a party member or when you're elected to a position. So I'll proceed with my class. Now, based on all what you have said, I'll just summarize what 3 definitions of what good governance entails. And I'll take the definition of the World Bank, I'll take of the UNDP, and I'll take of the IMF. Now, caveat here, there are several other definitions of good governance, several, based on their political philosophies, based on their kinds of democracies, based on the kind of how they, sometimes maybe it's even military rule, it's not democracy, but generally, the world has accepted any of these 3 definitions of what good governance is. Now, the World Bank, which, deals with a lot about economic development, about infrastructure, defines good governance as being central to creating and sustaining an environment that promotes robust development and complements sound policies. While the UNDP has articles or has adjectives that, like some of you have described earlier on, of what good governance should entail. It should be participatory, it should be transparent, it should be accountable. And there's a difference between transparency and accountability. We'll come to that later. It should be effective, it should be equitable, and most importantly, there should be a rule of law. And all these things are supposed to ensure that developmental priorities are based on broad societal consensus. That's the democracy we are practicing now, to amplify the voices of the most vulnerable and for everybody. That's the United Nations Development Program. While the IMF, they are pushing us to remove all the subsidies, views good governance as a broad concept encompassing all aspects of how a country is governed, including economic policies, regulatory frameworks, and adherence to rule of law. So, and of course, the IMF emphasizes the effective utilization of public resources, management reforms, and creation of transparent, stable economic environment conducive to private sector activities. So just this in a nutshell, these are the 3 definitions I decided to pull out. There are several others, and from the responses from the group chat, I think I will all kind of understand what to expect, what good governance should be. Now, for me, good governance, from all those definitions and from what you have said, there are elements that characterize what good governance should entail. Now, this is not exhaustive, but I feel this is what, if Nigeria gets, because we're all Nigerians and we're discussing Nigeria now, if Nigeria does this, we should not be in the position that we're in today. So broadly, there are 4 main pillars of my dimensions of good governance. The first one is political accountability, is the first one and the most important one for me. And it's good. I'm speaking to Electoral College. I believe this is part of what they do. The second, after political accountability, will naturally translate into good public sector management that will birth a competitive private sector. And of course, all these things have to be involved. You have to involve the civil society participation and general citizens and vulnerable groups. So in explaining the political accountability, simple. If you do not have credible elections, or before even the credible elections, if you do not have an effective system of leadership selection, everything you're seeing on this slide is going to fail. So the leadership selection process, now I'm talking about the political party primaries to start with. Once that is tainted with bribery, corruption, nepotism, all those ills, everything you are seeing that I'm going to explain in the next 30 minutes will likely fail. Why? Because it is the pillar, is the bedrock of what everything starts. Because if you don't have good leaders, it will be difficult to implement anything we're going to talk about. So before credible elections in our own terrain, we'll have to have credible primaries to select those people before we even go to have credible elections. Now, let's assume the parties all do what they're supposed to do and set criteria to bring out the best amongst them by criteria that has been set. Now you have to have those credible elections. Now, they might not all be perfect, but they must be credible and they must be free and fair to represent the will of the people. Because if it's not the will of the people, it's also likely going to fail. So that is and we're in the Electoral College here, and I'm sure there are modules that have spoken about this. So that is very important. The second one is transparency in party financing. Now we're bedeviled in this country, and I'm not excluding any political party, that most parties is those that have money that end up getting nominated. There's low level of transparency. There's too much money involved, too much financial incentives for people to get their nomination. And even those that are good, that have the quality, the competence to run for elections, you find out they can't do it because they don't have money. And even when once in a while we have seen scenarios where some people are being funded, maybe because they think they are good, you find out that still they have to just bribe their way. There's no other way of doing it in Nigeria, unfortunately. And this cuts across almost all the political parties that we know about. And this is why you find out up to today, 2024, there is no single politically exposed person, political leader, apart from late Umar Musa Yar'Adua and Goodluck Jonathan when they were president and vice president. There's not a single one that has properly declared his assets. When they declare to CCB, they will tell you they have declared and they have fulfilled the requirement of the law. True, that is fine. But how about transparency in letting the citizens know that, okay, before I run for office, this is what I have. And now that I have finished, this is what I have. There are only a few, and I think Shore too in the last election declared. But most of our politicians do not declare that this thing. So if you don't have these three things, meaning it will be difficult for corrupt people to even vie for political office because of that asset declaration mechanism. You have a transparent process where party primaries is not the money bags that hijack it and win it. Then you have a credible general elections. Then we can go to the next layer, which is public sector management. Now, I would like in the same group chat for those listening, please, under this public sector management, can anybody, you can even use Google if you like, write what the budget of your local government is and budget of your state. Please, I'll give 1 minute for that. Budget of your local government, pick any year you feel like. 30 seconds. No responses? And that's probably true because some people are maybe try to use Google because we don't really check what our budgets are for our states, not to talk of local governments. Thank you, Mr. Jimim, 225 billion Benue. And that's for what year? 2023, I suppose. Or is it for this year? So basically, as people are responding, what we have to realize is that citizens pay taxes. And after you pay taxes, there are other sources of income for government. Now, all these things come together. When they come together is how is what you use to prepare your budget and execute that budget. Thank you. I can see Kano, I can see Adamawa, I can see Cross River. Now, these are the things you use to execute your budget, but all these issues about budget, public sector expenditure, is to spend money for the people, on the people. Now, as you are typing this, your budgets, I can give you a whole day to Google. Go and check the level of implementation. Not only what they have said, you can check the level of impact of the implementation, because you can easily say my budget is $415 billion naira, sorry, Ogun State, and we have expended it on what? Now, this is where accountability comes in. So we have been preparing budgets, we have been expending budgets, we have been doing recurrent budget and capital expenditure, recurrent expenditure, but how far have we managed these resources to affect, to impact the lives of the common man? That's the questions we need to be asking. So if you don't have the first one, you find out when you fail in your electoral process, you find out those you have elected are not accountable because you do not bring them there. It's their money, they have brought them there. So the second layer, it will be very difficult to implement because they will not feel accountable. There's a governor I know that every end of the month after FAC, he takes almost 1/4 of the state resources and changes it to dollar and keeps it for himself. And this is one somebody I know because there was a case that I'm aware of that were on it. And there's a lot that happens that we probably don't know. So public sector expenditure management is a critical component of having good governance. If you don't manage your resources effectively, you are never, ever going to be able to deliver the dividends of good governance and democracy, especially because you have not had credible elections. The next thing is taxes. Taxes are important because taxes are a way of actually promoting inclusion. When people pay taxes, they are more interested in governance matters. But when you don't pay tax, you feel it's everybody's money, it's government money, it's free money. But taxes is a good element of good governance. Now, we're not saying the taxes must be high, but once it's cut across that everybody pays tax, apart from the really vulnerable groups, you find out good governance improves because people will now be more accountable. You cannot take my money to be flying private jet or to go and, do other things that are not related to governance, not to be doing your private things with our money. So that is why it is critical here. The next pillar, which is very important of the competitive private sector, is that you find out, for example, now I can see, let's say, Kano has 437 billion budget for 2024. Now, if you do not have a competitive private sector, where the public sector and the private sector connive together, you find out budget execution will be very poor. Contracts are not finished. What you are given to deliver, people do not deliver because there's a heavy amount of bribe giving and bribe taking and bribe offering. They're exchanging hands, so they do not deliver. But when you set a system, like just this morning, I saw on the news, Egypt has just sold one part of land by the beach to Dubai for $35 billion. Now, this is $35 billion that if you put in our economy today, all this inflation will drop today. It will drop automatically with it. In fact, with $20 billion, it will drop. But when you don't have a system or a conducive environment for foreign direct investment, that is second. But most importantly, even local investment, because we have a double jeopardy in Nigeria. Every governor, if you check the news, they are always flying out, looking for foreign direct investment. But nobody is going to come because your environment is not stable and is not competitive enough. Then the second dilemma we have, that the money they're even making from Nigeria, they're changing it into dollars and taking it out. So that's a double jeopardy. Money is going out unless are coming in. In fact, let me even note this as I finish this class, I'll show you one slide. Start initiative. Let me just note it down. So a lot of money is going out. In fact, let me just do this now. A lot of money is going out unless are coming in. So that is a serious problem because the environment for investment is not so conducive. We have security issues. We have double taxation issues. Then we have serious bribery issues. Those if you're on the platform from the north that are into agriculture, will be surprised to know that it is cheaper to transport your finished products of grains to, let's say, not only Niger, all the way to Algeria. It is cheaper than to transport it to Lagos. Why? Infrastructure and bribery on the roads. Once you cross the Nigerian border, the element of bribery drops significantly. But I heard between Lagos and what's this, our neighbors, Cotonou, somebody once told me, I've never been on that route. There are tens of checkpoints just between Lagos and Cotonou. And in every checkpoint, we can assume what happens there. So all these things are what drives away people from investing, and they want to invest somewhere because they are looking for returns on investment. Then we'll move to the last pillar, which is what we're talking about while we're here. It's about the role of media and civil society for the purposes of governance monitoring. Now, all this is we're talking about: elections, transparency, party financing, asset declaration, public sector management, utilization of taxes, this having a nice environment conducive for investments and businesses to thrive. The media and civil society have an active role in every one of these things so that they will ensure the right things are being done. Because without an active social media, I keep saying social media, without an active media, these things will fail. If you study strong democracies that are doing well in their politics and their economies, you find that their media is very strong and robust. But when there is low engagement of media and NGO, you find that thing becomes problematic. So then the last thing I'll talk about on this is inclusiveness. Nigeria is highly diverse, so you have to be inclusive in whatever you do. If you are not inclusive, you are likely going to fail. And some of these things are symbolic. Even if it's for symbolic reasons, you can solve a lot of problems with a lot of symbolism, about inclusiveness, diversities, even though it has become a bane for our development. The issues of federal character, the issues of bringing ethnicity and religion into governance, for me, is dragging us back. But it's a reality we have to live with, that we have to have some form of inclusiveness. But here, primarily talking about the women, people with disabilities, the youth groups, and what have you. So before I go to my next slide, I will ask another question, which I'm sure I'll get a lot of responses. Whatever you want to write, what do you think corruption is? I'll give another 30 seconds. What is corruption? So let's look at the responses here. What do you think is corruption? Olamide. Mr. Emmanuel says lack of integrity and transparency. I agree with you. Poor accountability and lack of check and balance. Aliu says corruption is greed. I all agree with you. Misuse of resources in a country of social pressures. Thank you. Falsifying procurement figures, very common. Lack of patriotism. Now, these are the kind of things I like to see. Lack of patriotism, which will lead, all those other ones, we are aware of them. But we may not understand not being patriotic could be an act of corruption. Because that lack of patriotism may lead to tribalism, ethnicity, and you find out you don't love your country and you do things detriment to your country. Thank you very much. So as people are responding, I'll go ahead to tell you what corruption is. Now, this is a general consensus based on what all you have written. But when we're talking about good governance, we are usually relating corruption to public sector corruption, because there are a lot of things related to the private sector. They are all corruption. There are a lot of things we do that are corruption. But when it comes to defining corruption within the public space, we define it as the misuse. So anyhow you misuse it. favoring somebody because it's your tribe or religion, or somebody favoring somebody, abuse of office, conferring advantage to yourself, all these things, misuse of public office, public resources, or public responsibility for private, personal, or group gain. That's as that tell and describe what corruption is. And this, if you open it deeply, it covers all the examples you just gave, because you have misused that responsibility given to you by virtue of being in a public office, by having some power for personal or private gain or for some other groups. And that is just what the corruption is. Transparency International also defines corruption as the abuse of entrusted power for private gain. And these are the effects. It erodes trust, it weakens democracy, it hampers economic development, and exacerbates inequality that we're all facing today, poverty, social division, and environmental crisis. And these are the things I just explained. We can see how poverty has deepened in Nigeria. One of the reasons is because of those elements of good governance that we do not have. We're the poverty capital of the world. That has already been established. Our multidimensional poverty index is one of the highest also in the world. Our access to healthcare is one of the least. Access to education, primary school level, one of the least. Access to $1.9 a day, one of the least in the world. You know, our social unrest, the last global terrorism index, Nigeria was number 3, I think just after Afghanistan. We were 3 or number 2. Number 2 or number 3. That is very bad. We waste resources. You know, a lot of resources are wasted in the sense that they are not judicially used. And of course, what does this happen? It hinders our economic growth and development. If you look at our infrastructure now, though the last government tried to do something, but if you look at the money they supposedly spent on even in the infrastructure, you can assume what happened there. And we're all aware of the present level of insecurity in the Northeast. We have challenges of Boko Haram and other terrorism activities. In the Northwest and North Central, other acts of terrorism in the manner of banditry and kidnapping. The Southwest, we have the same. South, all bunkering. South is the same thing. Everywhere insecurity. And mind you, this corruption we're talking about is at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local government level. It's not only the federal level. It's on the 3 layers of government of this public sector corruption where good governance dividends have not been delivered that we have these problems. And that is why no matter how much our president travels, our governors travel to bring foreign direct investment, it will just not happen because there's too much insecurity. Your fundamentals are not right. Your economic environment is not sound, therefore people to come and invest. So before, how do I go back now? Okay. So before we all blame Nigeria about we're not doing anything about it, excuse me. These are the legal and institutional frameworks we have set aside to combat these aspects of corruption. As you all know, I'm sure you're all aware of the ICPC, the EFCC. They will have some laws. This is related 419, the Advanced Fee Fraud Act. We have the Money Laundering Prohibition Act. This has been, is 2022. Sorry, this needs to be updated. This is the Code of Conduct Act, where every public officer is mandated to declare his assets before and after office, like I told you in that second slide. We have the NATI Act, where it's supposed to provide governance in our extractive sector. Today, there are people mining gold, mining resources with near zero accountability. There's oil theft down south with near zero accountability. It's one of the reasons we cannot even raise dollars now to fund the excesses, you know, and fund export, fund importation, you know, because of all these issues. Of course, we have the Freedom of Information Act, which the compliance level, there was a program about 2 weeks ago, has been very low. Very low on 2 sides. One, the demand side. People are not actually even demanding. After putting pressure on President Jonathan then to pass this act, after passing it till today, the number of requests, I don't think they're up to 200 in total. because it's so low. That's on the demand side. On the supply side, even when you ask, they are not giving, and much pressure has not been given there. On the Fiscal Responsibility Act is to make government responsible in their spending, in their expenditure, and their borrowing. This has been violated severally. At the National Assembly were doing their work, they would have, national and state assemblies, if they were doing their work, they would have been tired of impeaching everybody by now. But nothing has happened because they're probably doing it together. And of course, for lawyers on the platform, we have these laws. This is for the Northern Nigeria on crime, and this is for the Southern Nigeria on crime. So all these are just some of the legal and institutional framework we have now to combat corruption. Now, to know whether they are working, I can show you another slide later, not here, to tell you how they are working or they are not working. So, recommendations, because let's not spend this class and just be talking about the problems. Let's discuss some of the recommendations. One, some of the things we need to do is we have to have laws, because we have been spending too much money on chasing governors, chasing local government chairmen, chasing ministers. We have to spend more on preventive mechanisms. And the way to do that for me is to see issues, development, not only laws, but systems that promote transparency. Because the deeper there's transparency, there's the less the corruption you have. That has been proven by a lot of examples around the world. The more you improve your transparency, unless I know there's a lot of shamelessness where people do not even care to even say they are stolen. But when you do that, automatically there's supposed to be more accountability, and this is supposed to reduce corruption, then improve governance. Then the second one too is, the first one is having the laws, that you have the actual practice where you have open data, let everything be open and accessible to the public. How much government spends on each item, who are the contractors, who are the directors, if there's party contribution, how much everybody contributed, how much is APC worth, how much is NNPP worth, how much is PDP worth, how much is APGA, who contributed. I think I saw Peter Obi release something like an audit report a few weeks ago. Everything should be transparent so that people will decide that they would like to, maybe they will attract more people if you are more transparent, that now this is likely or unlikely that people will be attracted more to the people that are more transparent, though that may not be the case. Sometimes we like to even copy our oppressors, people that are stealing from us, like the ones we see that they are doing well. So that is one. The second one, we need to have a very strong whistleblower protection act, and this goes, they have changed the law, the bill actually is to call public interest disclosure bill. So when you blow a whistle on something, you should be compensated adequately and protected. That is the reason for having the word incentives here. You blow a whistle on a governor and a local government chairman or any public officer, there should be some incentives, and some compensation, and of course, you should be protected. That's what. Then we have to, just like what we're doing here, we are too laid back as Nigerians, too laid back. Citizens' engagement needs to get deeper, more public consultation, not because of the money we can get, but to continue asking deep critical questions to our political office holders. Now you see in the news, I don't know whether we're getting used to it or maybe it's fatigue. For example, just 2 or 3 days ago, somebody was taken to court, a former governor of Kwara, if I'm correct, for misappropriation. Nobody is even moving an inch. You would expect the people of the state to be upset why they don't have good roads, they don't have hospitals, they don't have access to education, but nothing. Within 1 or 2 weeks, you find out somebody may probably give him a chieftaincy title, and the thing continues. So we need to deepen awareness and citizens' engagement for people to understand that these are your resources people are taking. It's not theirs. It's not theirs. It doesn't make sense for somebody before an election, he has maybe 2 cars, or before any political office or appointment, he has 1 car or 2 cars, and simply by virtue of luck, he's in a political public office that without problems, everybody is supposed to be running away from, but we're congratulating people for getting into public office. And why wouldn't we congratulate them when in 2 years you see their quote and unquote lifestyle has changed. New cars have come in, children's status have changed, all this, and those are the kind of things we admire. Instead of interrogating them, we admire them. So we're part of the problem by pushing, by maintaining that psychological cycle of looking at public service as a means for self-enrichment. But when we condemn them, you find that the less people want to go into public office. There's strengthening institutions. This is very critical, but there has been back and forth argument about strengthening institutions and strong men. You definitely need strong men to strengthen institutions. Strengthening institutions is basically about putting system where no matter who is there, the system will work. That you cannot come and influence it, you cannot change the law. That is one of the critical elements of strengthening institutions. Of course, this is not only limited to the judiciary, even the public office, the executive offices under the executive should be strengthened. The judiciary should be strengthened. The National Assembly has enormous powers, but they are not using it. They are strong enough. They have enough laws to ensure good governance in Nigeria. That is the National Assembly at the federal level and the State Assembly at the local level. Though they are weaker, but they have enough powers to ensure all those elements of good governance we're talking about, but that is not happening. Why? Because probably we too from civil society were not engaging them enough and putting the right amount of pressure for them to do the right thing. The next one is promote ethical leadership. You see, in Nigeria now, if you are looking for a professor of every field academic endeavor in the world, I'm sure we'll have it. Professors of medicine, nuclear physics, nuclear biology, nuclear mathematics, whatever we're looking for, we'll get. But what we don't have, I like to use the words of Professor Sibajo, are the soft issues. People that know what it means to have integrity, honesty, they know the value of dignity, but all these things are only important if there's competence. So it's better I put that caveat there. You can be a man of integrity, you can be honest, have dignity, but you're not competent. So you have a problem there. So these things, but this is a very good value, at least for a leader should have this, is because if you don't have integrity and honesty and dignity, then the other things might not really matter. But it would be good to have leaders. Somebody cannot come and be sharing money bags and we're celebrating them, we're giving them awards and titles here and there. So that is one of the things we should all need to promote. The younger ones to stop doing. The more we will do that, the better our society will get. The code of conduct for public officials is already there, but near zero implementation. Even though that they are complying, they don't make it public. So even if somebody before office, he will tell you he's worth 50 million naira, and after office is worth 500 million naira, nothing happens because they have not made it public. And the Code of Conduct Tribunal that is supposed to prosecute those that have been found, to have abused their office or altered their forms, nothing has really happened because they have not given access to the citizens to critique the content of those forms that they have filled. So who verifies? Is the same Code of Conduct Bureau that verifies what they have submitted. So that, instead of pushing even the work to citizens, imagine having a public website with the names of all political officers in the country with their assets, online access. You see nobody will you see them hiding assets. If they can't claim some assets, it means they will lose it. Though there's a danger of money laundering now, because before you know it now, they start taking the money abroad. But if you now make it public, it means they will start losing the assets abroad. So that would discourage even it just by making that database public. But for some reasons, best known to them, they have refused to digitize the process fully and make it public. And of course, no matter when President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was removing the subsidy, I wrote a piece say, look, removal of subsidy is the easiest part. You are going to have much more naira. But if you do not have an effective public expenditure and financial accountability mechanism to ensure that those resources you have are effectively utilized, it's a waste of time. And that's where we are today. Governors are receiving 2 to 3 times of what they used to receive before June 2023. But I can tell you, every one of you, go back to your states and show me what has improved, even though the allocation has doubled. Are there more routes? Are there more schools? I'm not aware if anyone has increased salary. They are still struggling to pay salary. I'm not aware of how a few that have cleared backlog of pensions. How many times have they collected loans for all these things? So these are the issues. So once you don't have that effective financial accountability mechanism on ground, even if he gives every federal and state parastatal $100 billion, it will go through the same route. It will go the same route, which is why it will, this leads me to the last slide. You have to combat corruption. I've argued that this government, whether they like it or not, they want to, I believe they want to develop the country. I truly believe. I believe they want to increase the welfare, but I don't believe they truly want to fight corruption. Now, because they don't understand that fighting corruption now in Nigeria is an economic argument. It's not about something else, because all your policies will fail if you do not combat corruption, money laundering, taking money out, and illicit financial flow. So these are the things that all need to happen. And when we talk about all these things, I always insist, always at the state level and local government level. I know there's nothing at the local government, but we have to do something about it. They are getting monies, whether the governor is controlling them or not, they are getting a lot of money and something needs to be done. So all these things need to be done all together. Then last but not the least, of course, we have to promote social inclusion. People with disabilities need to be included. Some marginalized groups, the women, the youth, all need to be included. Then what we're doing now, we're educating and raising awareness, about citizens' rights and all these things, because another issue we have that I found out the Electoral College has been trying to do, people do not even know their rights. So when you don't know your rights, it's difficult to answer, to demand for good governance. Then lastly, of course, you can't do this alone in combating corruption to ensure you have good governance in your country without collaboration with other countries. And that is in another slide I'll show you after this class to see what we have done. So I think this comes to the end of my slides. Thank you for your time. And I hope I'm not taking, 48 minutes. Thank you very much. And thank you for your time. Over to you.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. Very succinct and very well put together. Thank you very kindly for the slides. I want to believe that the students also had an opportunity to look through the slides before the class, which would help you to ask the relevant questions that you may have. I, for one, have one question, but I would, do we have hands raised? Okay. Now, looking at all the, I looked at the slide that talked about the legal frameworks and institutions we have in place, and I'm asking myself, we have almost, I could count about 10 or so. And then
more
the question,
than this. Yes, way more than this.
So there are even more. So it begs to question, what exactly, and it doesn't look like we are nipping corruption in the board. So what exactly are we not doing rightly across both the public sector, even in the private sector? What exactly is it if we have all these laws? So what exactly is our problem, and how can we be more intentional about ensuring that these laws work? Some people believe that during the Obasanjo administration that there was a bit more intentionality on the part of the government to fight corruption. I want to know whether that indeed was the case, or was it a case of witch hunt, or was it fair, or would you say that the institutions were made to work during that period? And what exactly are the challenges we're facing now? Thank you, sir.
Okay, to answer your question, two things. I think President Obasanjo saw the need to fight corruption as cardinal in ensuring he had good governance. Now, whether things were selective or not, to me, is subjective. If you are caught, are you guilty or you are not guilty? It's simple and straightforward. When you throw a net to catch fish in the water, it's not going to get every fish you want. It will just capture the ones that are unlucky. Let me use that word. So the international mechanism, that's why even the United Nations Convention Against Corruption recognizes that. That's why they always evaluate you based on how many politically exposed persons you have jailed, meaning the big people. How many big you can, because if you look at the EFCC data now, for example, just last year they had over 3,000 convictions. How many are former governors or PAMSECs or ministers? Less than 2 or 3. So from the international community, you are not doing anything. So that is another area. We are not jailing enough of the big people. And as long as you are not doing that, you are not really doing anything. Now, to answer your first question, I'm not sure I can answer it, but for me, the reason why all this do not work, if you remember my first slide, I told you, once you do not have a framework for political accountability by ensuring an effective primary elections to bring out the best, so that you have credible general elections, I said it, everything will fail. Now, there is no way somebody has spent 2 billion to be, or I don't even know how much, let's say 5 billion to be governor. He has bought people. He has spent on campaign. He has dashed out rice and water and everything. The moment he gets into public office is to recoup. And how does he recoup? He will appoint his loyalists, people that contributed, people that will protect him. Now, once he does that, you now put the kind of EFCC chairman you want, the kind of ICPC chairman you want, the kind of judge you want. How will all these laws work? All these laws we're looking at, how will they work when right from the onset, this political accountability here, we have not gotten it right. I hope you get my point. So we need to spend more resources. That's why I love what the Electoral College is doing. And anytime they invite me, I say, no problem. I will come a weekend just to talk. If we don't get this right, we'll just be managing all these ones the way, like weight management or diabetes management. Yeah, just managing. But this, if you don't do this, this is the healthy eating and exercise and watching what you eat. If you don't do this, all these things will be diabetic, and they'll be overweight. These are the problems we're having. So just to answer your question. Thank you.
Okay, all right. All right, thank you so much, sir. Now I see 3 hands raised, and I would ask our admin to please unmute. The first person I see is Musa Salihu of the APGA. After him, we go with Godwin Ubiji, and then lastly, Umoren. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your wonderful presentation. Actually, my question goes by the way, but before I proceed, I know we are in a country whereby problems are all over. Someone citing an example of Nigeria, like more of Abada, where when you fall the left hand side, the right, another problem from the right hand side get unfolded. But from my own perception, we are very good in policy making, but in terms of policy implementation, we are very, I can't say zero, but I can say we are poor in terms of that. We are lacking that. So, sir, does that mean the level of our fighting of corruption in Nigeria is to some extent subjective, in the sense that whereas the ruling party or any party that is heading the federal level that has power over the anti-corruption organization, it seems like when it only to some extent it targets only outsiders, those that are not within the ruling party. Whereas when you jump over to the ruling party, you are no more a case, or how am I going to put it? So I don't know, sir, whether my question is making sense, in the sense that the fighting of corruption to some extent is subjective, in the sense that it is only those that are not within the ruling party that tends to be prosecuted, whereas I can recall there was a former chairman of a party that was calling attention of those that are not within the party that come here, you will be forgiven if you switch onto the ruling party. And just from statistic, sorry to call, just the list of the former governors that were being listed with the cases of corruption. From here, Kano, we have Konkoso, and who again, Sokoto, they have Atahiru Bafarawa, which have, and others that happens to be not within the ruling party, in the sense that, is it not that just our fighting of corruption is just subjective, not objective?
Okay. Okay, thank you for your question. I think you have two questions. You talk about poor implementation of policies and about selective prosecution or persecution. These are your basically a summary of two questions. Now, I'm on this slide again. Now, look at this issue of public sector expenditure. All the corruption you are talking about, 70% of it is related to procurement. It's procurement fraud. There's money, you decide to give somebody contract and the person pays you back. If you look at all the cases involving governors, blah, 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 it has to do procurement. Now, imagine a scenario where the media here that I'm highlighting ensures that every data related to procurement is in the public domain. Online, not newspaper. I think Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala tried to do it in 2004 or 5 or so. I can't remember the year. Every data, just procurement, not just the procurement aspect. If you go to the NDDC website, Niger Data Development Commission, you see the contractor, the name of the company, the directors, how much was paid, when was paid, level of execution, everything, and the role of the media are doing what they are supposed to do, not collecting bribe from the back end. How will the monies be stolen? That is one. Two, if that is your, they said two, if we're talking about policy implementation, these people, all of them will come with their manifestos. We are going to provide water, roads, make dollar or maybe 100 to the naira, whatever. Who ensures that they must fulfill their promises? The National Assembly. Now, what has the National and State Assembly done to ensure that they make the executive to comply with their own laws, the laws they made by themselves? What have they done? They have not done much because of this same problem. The way we all know how our National Assembly members got their party nomination and how they got to seats. And part of the problem is because a lot of academics like you and I will go and sit down and say, we're not going to be involved in elections. They will take the worst of us, though some will even join and become worse, but we'll take the worst of us to go and become state assembly members, local government councillors, House of Rep, and Senate. So because of that process of bad, credible elections, you find out the worst of us go there, and that's why they cannot check the executive. And now, and if they cannot check the executive, which policy can they implement? I'll take you to the Fiscal Responsibility Commission. No government is allowed, the federal government, because it's a federal law, is allowed to borrow 2.5%, if I'm correct, exceeding its GDP. 2.5%. The last administration borrowed over 20%, and the National Assembly approved everything. Clear violation of a law, clear. And they're supposed to be lawmakers. So where were they when they didn't see their law when they were approving it for Buhari, or what were they doing? Do you get my point? So we can sleep here and I will continue giving you thousands of examples, winding over the problem, but the solution is this. If we do not have these two, we are going to continue having this problem. Thank you. Sorry about the second question about selective prosecution. That I will tell you is true. It does happen, but it happens everywhere, and I'm not justifying it. But when we hold the institutions more accountable, social media, I think things will be better. When we continue asking, let's say the EFCC, okay, EFCC, you are prosecuting 3,000 people. Where is the data? How many are from here? How many are from there? Okay, this person from that other party is a similar case. Why have you not prosecuted him? Maybe the media, I think that aspect will improve. But the argument they always give is has the person they are prosecuting, has he committed a crime or not? And you answer the yes, they have a justification. Thank you. Next.
Godin, I've asked you to unmute and ask your question.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, sir, for your very elaborate lecture. My question is related to the questions already asked, but I'd like to draw a specific instance. One of your recommendations to address the issue of corruption is that we need to have laws. But like has already been pointed out, we seem to have laws, we seem to have legislation which are not observed. Precisely, you talked about the Code of Conduct Bureau, the Code of Conduct Act, which you rightly observed that stipulates that candidates contesting for elective positions must declare their assets. Ironically, the president we have today, I'm not aware he declared his assets, but he was still eligible to stand for elections. So I don't know. I don't know why that is possible. And how can such a case be addressed? Will you still say such a case can be addressed by having credible leaders in election when even the leaders themselves cannot be scrutinized before they are brought forward for elections? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for your question. I'm back to the same thing. Like there are thousands of things that were supposed to be implemented, but are not being implemented. Why? Because of that same primary problem we've had of not having reasonable, credible elections to enable the National Assembly at the federal level or the state assemblies. Please, let's not be forgetting states, because what goes on down there is worse than the federal level. I've never seen any state assembly taking on any governor to ask why he has not declared his assets. That discussion doesn't even happen at the state level at all. We're all talking about federal level, not talking about local government chairman that the governors control. So it's cut across board. We have to work on, by participating in elections, to ensure the credible people come out. That's just the way, because there is strong men that make strong institutions. It's strong men. If you look at history, before you get to the level where you cannot even dream of holding a public office without declaring your assets, some strong men have to be there. Strong in the sense not macho men, but at least they have the right policies, the right frame of mind to do all these things. So that's our solution. That's the best I can answer this question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Umoren, I've asked you to unmute.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir, for the wonderful session. I just wanted to ask, because it's something that has constantly been on my mind, and somehow, to an extent, I believe that it's possible. That I just want to get your point, and much more. I think you've alluded to it. You said it is strong men who make strong institutions, and this is my perspective. Usually, I believe that it is the place of people with credibility, people with high integrity, to come into government and then set the standard and set the role model, become role models for transformation, whether in the state or in the public sector, to be able to drive change from top to bottom. But then my question is basically on the ethics of an average Nigerian. An average Nigerian is considered to be corrupt in a sense. An average Nigerian has lack of integrity. Is not sincere, and this is reflected in almost everything that we do around us. So, do we need the right person? Do we need one righteous man to come in and set the standard for us? And then in the midst of the policies that we are making, we are just being aware that the policies are not going to work. because we don't have somebody that will come to set the role model. And when we keep on making policies, enacting laws, creating acts, knowing fully well that they will not be implemented to the letter. So where do we begin from to ensure that we start actually practicing the laws, putting the laws into effect, and holding public office holders accountable for their deeds? When do we start doing that, or where do we draw the line, or when do we begin to do that? That's my question, sir.
Okay, thank you. Two things. One, ensure that the credible people, as much as possible, are the ones that are elected. And I'm fully aware that sometimes you have credible people that will get there and the system will change them. Two, once they are there, as civil society, which I'm part of, or you as citizens, to put pressure on the National or State Assembly to ask them about their laws. That these are the simple two ways to do these things. Like, to give you an example, let me see. To give you an example, this is our civil society website. There's a program we did with the National Assembly. And we approached the National Assembly. I would say, National Assembly, you are the one asking for laws to be implemented on anti-corruption laws. So what we did was to now ask every MD, every ministry, department, or agency at the federal, state, and local government level to provide this thing. I'm coming. Okay, good. This here. Good. To provide information on certain categories of information. They're about, we call them the variables. They're about 29 in number. But we now ask them to publish every information. This is the address. You can copy it. The internet is misbehaving a bit. To publish information. And when we started this project related to procurement, to audit, to human resources, to budget implementation, to budget execution, to the taxes you collected, to your debt level, all those parameters of good governance, we ask every single MDA at the federal and state level, and we rank them. And to our surprise, we started 2021. We have done the third edition now. Every year, there is a slight improvement. Of course, not the improvement we want. I don't know why this ranking data is not working. If it was working, we would have seen it better. Every year, but the report is here on our website. You can see the link here. Just take it and drop it now. You see there's an improvement every year. The ministries are not improving, but all the small CBN, NMB, they are not even publishing their reports. So as they are publishing, we expect people to ask questions. Yes, this has uploaded. You know, expect people to ask these questions, and when they ask, they'll be more accountable to citizens. But citizens are not asking enough questions because there's just too much hunger in the land, probably. You see, all these financials, these are the things we ask for everything in the last 7 years. What is your budget allocation? How much has you released? How much have you implemented every year for 7 years? And we tell them where we're drawing our powers from. These are their laws. It's not, the civil society cannot make law. These are our laws and their international commitments. Sustainable Development Goals, Nigeria OGP Action Plan, Final Information. We'll ask all these things. Even for the revenue generating agencies where most of the corruption takes place, how much revenue have you retained in the last 7 years? Publish it. We're putting them on their toes. So hoping that the more we do this, the more they will be accountable. And to be fair, there has been some improvement in 3 years. Not as much as we like, but at least it's good we acknowledge when something good has been done. So this is one of the ways. I know there are several ways, people have several ideas, but this is just one of the ways. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
And during my class, before the next question, I said I'll show one website when I was talking about when I laugh when I see governors flying around for foreign direct investment. This is something I was part of. It's a World Bank document, asset recovery database. Now, what this shows you, you can take the site, it's an open source again. What this map shows you, I don't know whether you can all see, is, sorry. Can you all see it? Good. Now, can you see all this red? Now, what is telling you, can you see this click? I've clicked country of asset location. These are just cases of asset recovery that we have done around the world, of where assets have been taken from country of origin now. This is country of origin. Country of origin is blue. Look at where they are taking assets from. Can you see the map of Africa? You see, look at just Africa, how they are taking assets from us everywhere. Then look at where the country of origin, where the assets are being taken to. Can you see? Can you see anybody bring any asset to Africa? Apart from 1 year in South Africa, just here. Nobody. Look at where we take all our assets and take. Why? We don't have enough preventive mechanisms for taking the assets outside. And all these assets you are taking, you are going there to develop all these places. This is the whole of Europe. Look at all of them. This is the whole of Europe. Look at Asia. To develop others, but we're not developing ourselves. So I recall saying that I will show this website we're doing our website. Thank you.
All right, Iore, you can go ahead and ask your question.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, Mr. Yakobo. Good evening, class.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah. So this is quite a passionate topic, because it borders on why it looks as if we are held hostage here, while the rest of the world is moving forward. I have a few observations I've made from this current administration, which runs like this. The first one is that in the fraud case involving the former Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation, Ms. Betta Edu, all the accused persons, the Chief of Staff, the Accountant General, Minister of Interior, and so many others, none of them have rescued themselves or resigned or been sacked by the president, only Betta Edu. Then the second observation I've made from this current administration is that on the 19th of February, 2024, the Office of the Head of Service of the Federation, which is directly under the presidency, released a circular directing that government information should not be released to the public. Then just recently, I think it was in Lagos State, the Chief of Staff to the President, while representing the President in a public function, did say something about social media, that it has become a menace or stuff like that, should be regulated. And then just 2 days ago, that's on the 22nd of February, I saw another circular online from the Embassy of the State of Qatar. They wrote to the Protocol Department of the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs, refuting any signed agreement between the State of Qatar and the federal government of Nigeria on investment and stuff like that. So my question now is, when you compare the action of the current administration with governments that are ranked highly in the Corruption Perception Index 2023, countries like Denmark, Finland, New Zealand, and the rest, do you believe, can we say that this particular administration is actually fighting corruption with all this observation? That's my first question. I have like about two. Maybe you respond to this one, ask the remaining ones.
Okay. I'm not sure I can answer that question, in the sense that the Betta Edu case, what was it about? She moved money. She wrote a letter to move money to give what do they call it? This register, the fraudulent register.
Yes.
To sanitize that register, right?
Yes.
Good. Now, if you remember in my class, I was talking about preventive mechanisms.
Yes, yes.
Now, if the head of service, now, in fact, let me even take it back now. Our
Yes, sir.
budget this year is about 20 trillion, right?
Yes.
I'm just assuming. Out of that 20 trillion, about 6 to 8 trillion is going for capital expenditure. Now, if you talk about capital expenditure, more than 60-70% of it is under procurement. It's contract, this, that, where this tiny piece of Better Edu case has come in.
Yes.
Now, think of our procurement processes of 6 trillion naira in 1 year. I'm not even talking about last year, and I'm not talking about 10 years ago. Just let's take 1 year. Do you think our preventive mechanisms under our procurement laws are fully implemented to prevent a Better Edu from happening?
I even think it's even zero.
Thank you. So that's why people should get excited, maybe because 2 people have fought and Better Edu's case has come out. That if there was no fight, you will not even hear it in the news. There was fight because I think there was some misunderstanding somewhere, somebody reported somebody and all that. You understand? But when there's agreement, so the mechanism itself is not foolproof for that stops a Better Edu from happening. Now, if now you say you have a budget, where in the budget was that line item to review to clean up that register? Nobody's checking. Nobody's checking. So civil society are not checking. Media are not checking. Probably only budget people are not checking. People are only checking probably at the federal level. So because I don't think it was a line item. You don't say you are going to clean up a register when you have already done the register.
Yeah.
You don't say that. So let's assume they have even put it in their budget or they substituted it. Who asks the key questions that who is doing the contract? Where is the openness? Where is the transparency? That is why I'm an advocate of transparency, because I realized we cannot catch the dog once it has left the cage. We cannot. Better is just out just because it's the one that is just out. That's my own thing. Your second question, you talked about government information not in the public domain. Yes, naturally, they don't want nobody. That's why I said the more open a system is, the more accountability. So it means part of our advocacy, all of us, is working. They don't want us to be scrutinizing their things on social media. Now, they must be oblivious of the fact that a lot of information too, there's a lot of fake news, a lot of wrong information. Like the last aspect you gave about the state of Qatar, they just canceled the function. It's not like they really bounced our president. It was just a function. They said, no, they cannot hold it because I think they had 2 or 3 things to attend to at the same time. They gave their reason.
Sorry, sir. Let me observe you, sir. They officially wrote to the
Minister of Foreign Affairs.
Yes, the Department of Foreign Affairs. They officially wrote and refuting the fact that Nigerian government does not have any agreement signed with the state of Qatar.
Yes.
They refuted it, at least the document is out.
I've seen the document. And what I'm saying is a diplomatic issue, really, that if you don't have a bilateral agreement between 2 countries on a subject matter, like I think we have a bilateral agreement, let's say with Dubai on corruption. Okay, you must have on commerce, you must have on relations, you must have on cultural exchange. So that's why I say it's not really related to.
I understand you now, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So the second question I have, sir, is this, because we are looking at Nigeria in the training that we are receiving to see how we can reform. So I like to make my questions applicable to reality, so as much as possible, so I can get understanding. Now, one of the most celebrated anti-corruption boss is Nuhu Ribadu.
Yes.
And in some quarter, he is being viewed as a powerful man because he has the trove of secrets about the country's elites, especially those corrupt ones. There are about 5 governors he exposed then in 2006 under Obasanjo when he was the boss of EFCC. Rivado is currently the national security advisor to the president. This same president that he accused and alleged was corrupt back then as a governor of Lagos State. Now, in his new role, Rivado is going to be working with a number of controversial characters, especially those governors that that have pending cases in court, as a result of a EFCC investigation, and some of them are in the 10th Senate, some of them are in the president's cabinet. Rubado is going to be working with all these people that he has exposed to us, and because our system, just like you said, is weak and nobody can hold them accountable, they are still in the system, in government. Now, using Ribado's integrity and maybe political body language, you are teaching us. What will you advise if I as a student of ECN today now, if I get into government tomorrow, what would you advise me using the case study of Malam Nuhu Ribado, sir?
Okay, what I'll just simply tell you is when Malam Nuhu Ribado prosecuted the people you just mentioned now, way back when he was chairman in 2003, 4, 5, 6 to 7, is the limits of the EFCC, the powers of the EFCC is limited to when they take their cases to court. Even if you take 1 million people to court and make your case, it is now left for the judiciary, for the judge to either tell you they are guilty or they are not guilty. So as long as they are not pronounced guilty, I don't think he doesn't have any legal right not to communicate or work with them. That's just what the law says. Now, even if they were proven guilty, like the case of Ojus or Kalu, which I think was even reversed in the long run. Now, if you are proven guilty, you will not even be holding political office in this first place. You will not be there, you'll be removed. So that's why I told you our judiciary too needs to be strengthened. Right now, the judiciary has said that these people are not guilty. What can anybody do?
Okay.
What can anybody do? Yes, sir.
Okay, that leads me to my last question.
Yes, sir.
If you look at civilized democracies,
yes,
immediately there's an allegation. This one, there's no judgment passed by any competent court of jurisdiction yet. Immediately there's an allegation, like in UK, in US, in Finland, in Denmark. I've watched countries. Once there's an allegation, the person recused himself out of that position. In fact, the former British Prime Minister, we know how he left office just because he was accused of coming out during the COVID period in the Downing Street. He has to resign and leave office. Now, in Nigeria today, when you accuse everybody, they sit tight. Allegations are on their head, they sit tight. So my question now is, for a leadership to effectively combat corruption, it is imperative that it must possess courage, character, you mentioned it, competence, and all of that. Now, are these qualities absent in Nigeria as it exists today?
Okay, to answer your question, I think personally I will not blame, but I think the solution lies in our religious leaders. Those people that follow my social media handle, I always say now, I think our major issue now is shamelessness. Now, you cannot shame somebody that is shameless. If somebody can leave office of a prime minister by virtue of violating a lockdown, not that I stole anybody's money.
Yes.
Lockdown, not that I took it. Shame. The Japanese call it harakiri. You kill yourself because you are ashamed. Now, when the only way to imbibe shame in our cultural setting, I think, is through our religious leaders. Now, when that thing is eroded, where people are not ashamed, think of it this thing. Before you became governor, you had one house. You are governor, now you're flying private jet, and you don't feel anything. You sleep well. I don't know the cure for that, my brother. I don't know. So I believe it's only maybe our religious leaders to be continue sensitizing people about having dignity. That's what I use, dignity, to feel ashamed.
Yeah.
Because if not shamelessness, how can you be abusing one political candidate today? When the other one wins, you switch, you come on TV.
Honestly.
And you have children watching you. You have younger ones. Now, which lecture are you going to give to such a person? You understand the predicament. So it boils down to the individual's level and degree of ability to feel ashamed. But then they have a culture, like I said, the Japanese culture. If you bring shame on your own, you even commit suicide because of shame. But we here now, even our religious leaders, you see them in private jet. You see them going hobnobbing with the political class.
Yeah.
Those that are over 40 years old on this platform, where do you see politicians and religious leaders sitting together? It never used to happen in the 70s.
Yeah.
No, they will not. But now, everybody, I don't know whether it's the poverty or it's the greed or fear, or I don't know what it is. But the solution to this is to have more engagement, more awareness creation, more sensitization on the values, on the soft issues of integrity and dignity. Not to do things even if there was no law. Now you have somebody even telling you, trying to remove a governor or coming on TV to tell you, yes, he demanded, how much billion was it? Or I can't even remember per month. Now, how do you cure that kind of thing? It's shamelessness. He's even telling you, so you don't even need to investigate, and nothing has happened. So this has to do with a lot of our values and our bedrock to improving our values and our religious and cultural institutions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Mike, I've asked you to unmute and ask your question.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Please, I urge everyone. This presentation is a very, very stratification that is of a competing departments. And I want us to understand that this is only for the organized structure. Most of us, we have told it that the rule obtained by this government tackling financial corruption is only on the politicians alone. It is okay now. It is breakdown on even the ones at the grassroots levels. And the domain set is that the thing has now bring a lot of fracas in our community today. Even the childhoods are feeling the urge, the consequences of all this. The rules and regulation of the laws are decreased, and Republicans emanate from the legislature. Do we think that our government want to sponsor technology? We don't want to sponsor technology. We are tackling the law firms. The law firms, if you check the nominal president appropriation bill by President Buhari, that's where we are going. He spent a lot, about 17 trillions or so. We are talking about 17 billions here.
What's your question, sir? What's your question? Time is running out, please. What's your question?
Yes, sir. My question is that it's very, very simple, sir. Is the administration system, is it running a dual mandate on yes, sir, in the effect and in the proceeding laws that we are enforcing in Nigeria?
Okay, thank you. As much as I know, every presidency, every government comes with its own mandate, and they tell you through their manifesto what they are going to do. And as citizens, we should monitor and see what that elements of their manifesto is. The last administration, if I'm correct, had 3: security, economy, and anti-corruption. This one they have 5, including those 3. They have two other ones. So that's, I think, it clearly shows that different manifestos, and that's what we should judge them on, including us, the citizens, the National Assembly, and the State Assembly. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. So we have 2 questions in the chat box. I'll just read them out. Okay, Abraham Jacob says, how can these policies be put in the hands of the public to ensure implementation, or how can the Office of the Citizens ensure implementations of the policies?
Yeah, part of the work you do at election Electoral College, I remember Kwele one time trying to educate people on even on the Constitution. I've heard him on TV several times talking about the Constitution. So people need to be more aware about the Constitution, about other laws, about things that are supposed to be done. So I think this question is actually for you, the Electoral College, not for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Then the next question, election is a process. Politicians in Nigeria knows this and follow the process to make it dirty, such as for long, some politicians have loyalists at various levels, even before they become elected leaders. How can such chain be broken so as to elect credible leaders across board?
Well, I think the best way to do this is to have a movement that will compel INEC, because INEC is the regulatory organization for our electoral processes. So it's to form a movement that will compel INEC to have a fully, even if not fully, a largely digitized process where most of everything regarding elections will be online, because once you make it online, you have removed the human element of it. And once you remove the human element, you have removed discretion. Nobody can play pranks or commit any fraud when it's a computer, that is handling those aspects. Our election, I don't know why we cannot do online voting. I don't see any reason why we can't. All this American Idol, British Got Talent, you see 80 million people voting online. And they're credible. It's credible. You save a lot of money. There's no security, So these are the things I think we have to start moving towards. Yes, we have made a lot of progress, right from when they introduced card reader to all this new technology. We have made a lot of progress, but there needs to be more progress in our electoral process. So that's where I think now when it becomes so credible, so you see, I've eliminated the body bags. The moment you do that, you find out that more credible people will be the ones that are vying for elections. So it's something that the Electoral College, I think, should take the lead in pushing for reforms in INEC through digitalizing our electoral process. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir, for this very great class. I learned so much, and I believe everyone has picked one lesson or the other from this class. I believe we don't have any more questions, so can we just thank our facilitator for the great class this evening?
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
sir. Sir.
Thank you, sir.
We're really great.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much
Thank
for the
you,
class.
sir.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, sir, and thank everyone for coming out for class this evening. So see you all again tomorrow. DED, do you have anything for us this evening before we go?
No, not really. Well done. Thank you so much, sir. It was an insightful class as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much,
All right,
sir.
good night, everyone.
Good night.